What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Vault Reviews. We're doing this live, so if you're not listening to this live, we're going to have it edited also, just like normal. But last show we did, I forgot to mention change of format. Very important. Mondays are going to be all requests, so we're so backed up on requests. So every week we're going to try to get requests on Mondays. Wednesdays are going to be throwback albums, at least 1 year old and possibly 100 years old. And then on Fridays, we're going to do new releases within 1 week. So hopefully that we'll stay more on top of those going forward. A lot of times in the past, we got kind of behind. We started reviewing all older stuff. So today we're going to be reviewing the latest Asking Alexandria album, The Black, 2016 release, says just last Friday. So we're 1 week. That's within the time frame. So this is one of those bands. Well, I'll just Robbie, or Jessamine, because look at Robbie. Robbie, start talking so everyone can see your effects that's watching.
Oh, well, yeah, but nobody can see my effects. I've been changing them in and out.
Oh yeah, we can see them.
Good. Because I've just been rocking them here. I found this new app on Google, so you guys get used to this. Look at this. Devil with a monocle. Ever seen that before? Sorry, getting carried away. Anyway, so, yeah, there you go. Now you guys can see my effects, and you will continue to see them.
Devil with a monocle. I think they're playing at the Troubadour next week.
There you go. All right, man, we're already off the rails. So, Jessamine, I think me and you were both familiar with Asking Alexandria. Robbie, I don't think was. So, what were your kind of first impressions when we decided to do this before you even heard it?
Before I heard it, well, I just kind of had this. I don't even know what really. I've never heard the band before, so I had no reason of thinking like this. But I was like, I'm not gonna like this, man. I looked at the cover. I kind of looked at some pictures of the band. I was like, ugh. Once I actually sat down and gave it a chance, it wasn't too bad. It was a fairly good album. I find it hard for you to take me serious with a monocle on, so we'll go ahead and pop that off real quick. But yeah, so I went into it thinking, I'm not gonna like this, I'm gonna hate it, and so I listened to the first few tracks, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of what I thought it would be. Took me a couple of sit downs to get through it and enjoy it, but it turned out all right, a little better than I expected it to be, that's for sure.
Jessamine, what was your thoughts? Because I remember when we first decided to do this, you're kind of like, I don't even know, your reaction was just kind of the same as mine, just kind of like, yeah, all right. But
Yeah, I mean, I will, you can't not acknowledge that Asking Alexandria is a popular band. A lot of people dig what they do. It's never really been, I find it to be incredibly stereotypical. I was originally turned off by them, especially their first album, just because so much of their lyrical content was focused around, drug use and objectifying women, which are not subjects that I particularly enjoy to listen to, just in general. But I do understand that this was something that they've made an effort to have more depth to what they do than just screaming the F word on stage repeatedly. However, this album did have its own its share of that too. But yeah, I don't know. This was one of those albums where I felt like we should look at it because it is a new release. It is very popular. A lot of people are checking it out, but a lot of people are disappointed in it, which it's interesting. This is the first album with their new lead vocalist. I don't know how to pronounce this last name. I'm going to give it a shot. Denis Shaforostov, maybe. I don't know if somebody can correct me on that. But anyway, he was replacing Denny Warsnop, who's been with them before, and he went kind of to pursue this the harlot Harlot project, so he left the band. So it's kind of their first venture with the new vocalist. And before the album came out, they're giving it this big, we've got these Guns N' Roses influences, we have Van Halen influences, we have
All
Avenged
these new
Sevenfold.
bands
Yep.
always say that. They're always like, yeah, we're taking it back to real
Oh,
rock
yeah.
from the 80s.
Oh,
And I'm just
yeah.
always like,
And
oh,
that was,
no.
and you say arena rock, and that was an expression that they used multiple times in promoting this album. Was just like, there are going to be a number of arena rock tunes on it. It's like, because I honestly think at this point, bands that are saying we're making arena rock tunes, what they actually mean is that at some point there's a section where there's a chorus applied, there's reverb, vocals are layered, and it sounds like a crowd is singing back to them and their own studio-produced tracks. It's like, that's not an arena rock song. Arena rock songs are born in arenas because they rock. You don't produce them that way and then call it that, which that's what I felt like. But then they also, they said, we've got, Avenged Sevenfold influence in here. We've got Slipknot influence in here. So I feel like almost with that statement, it's the, we're trying to appeal to everyone on this one, guys. Like, we're going to get you all. If you like old school or the new school, we got you covered. And I personally don't like it whenever bands don't have it comes off to me like not having guts to say, you know what, this is what we are, or we are all of these things, instead of like, yeah, it's gonna be like this guy and like this guy and like this guy. It's like, be different. I don't know. Sorry if that's going
Well, and
off
trying
a little bit
to
too much,
cover,
but it was frustrating to me.
and trying to cover so many genres. I mean, like, there's bands I like in certain genres, and I don't even want them trying to cover everything. Just like, do what you do, and the people that like you are gonna like you, and if they don't, that's not their band. So, I guess maybe coming from a different standpoint, this is one of those bands that's always, in being like a metal fan, hardcore, these guys are always kind of riding the fence, all in there with the screamo, emo, they're in there with the Black Veil Brides and all this. There's this whole group of bands that I'm not going to say they all sound the same, but they're all kind of in the same ballpark, if that makes sense.
I would say that, Zan. I will step out on that limb and say that I feel very much that they all sound the same. And especially when you said Black Veil Brides, like, yes, this band, that band, in my eyes. And I try, and I'm trying, and I have some tracks on here that I don't hate. And I didn't hate the album in general, but whenever I look at it, I feel like it's so stereotypical, and you can loop them in with so many other bands that you could buy t-shirts for at Hot Topic, which is fine. Yeah. I know that it appeals to a broad variety of people, but I don't understand what they're hearing in it that has that broad appeal, because I don't find it that appealing.
I do have an opinion on that. I think I can get it. I get why people like it. I still don't get it per se, but I'll save that till the end of the review. So, Robbie, we haven't given you much time with your sweet mustache. What do you have on this album? What do you like? What did you like to kick things off?
The thing I like the most about it, there's a song called "I Won't Give In," and about, like, I'm a sucker for breakdowns. Like a Day to Remember does great breakdowns. They do that good cop, bad cop thing like you talk about. But about 2.5 minutes into this song, they do a sweet breakdown, real crunchy riffs, slow, nice screams. I really like that stuff. It drives home. It pumps me up. That's about the most positive thing I could say. It's really cheesy. Wouldn't say it's a negative, but a lot of it was real cheesy sounding, and maybe it's just because it's been reproduced, so many times, and
Had you heard that song before this album, before this review, Robbie?
No, I'd never heard of this band before. I mean, I've heard of the band, but I'd never heard them before this review.
Well, had you heard in particular that song, I won't give in?
Nope, never have.
No, okay. Well, that was something. Zan, did you notice that at all? Just the fact that single was the first single from this album to be released. That was released almost 1 year ago on May 26th, 2015. So that song has been in everybody, and that song, if you listen to local Springfield radio, I mean, that song in particular has been all over Q102 like mad crazy. And that's a song that, you know, has penetrated a lot of people's ears. And, you know, whenever they're talking about how anticipated the album was, I mean, when you're releasing singles an entire year before you're releasing an album, that's interesting. And I talked to a couple of fans of this band, and not necessarily fans of this era of this band, but old, who would consider themselves perhaps old school fans of Asking Alexandria. And one of them, my buddy Dave, the statement that he made was that he liked I Won't Give In, but the reason that he liked it the most was because it was the track that he had the longest exposure to. It wasn't necessarily because it was the sweetest track off the album. It was just the one that he'd had the most exposure to. So I thought that was interesting. So, Robbie, I'm glad that even though it was a raw listen, that it still resonated with you like that. That's cool. And as far as from a label's perspective, that was a good choice for them to make that the first single.
Yeah,
I wasn't
absolutely.
familiar with this.
Stood out to me, so.
I wasn't familiar with this at all, and I have written down here by that song. Sounds like a radio hit type. So.
Oh,
there you go.
It was overplayed, mad crazy.
Oh, well, maybe I just liked it, and you know, because I've heard it before and didn't realize I'd heard it before. I don't know, guys. I don't know.
No,
it had to have been that way, you know.
What'd you guys think about Undivided?
I mean,
any of you mark that down at all?
Yeah, I just like it's good. It's okay. I mean, I just.
Well, that was the second single, which was released last September. So again, you know, a good, what is that, 6 or 8 months ago. And my other friend that I talked to about that, Dennis, who I believe is listening in live, one of the things that he said,
actually have a comment. Let me see. I'm going to look for it while you just keep talking. We had a comment that he had on here.
Okay, cool. Well, one of the things that he said whenever we were talking, and I'm going to quote him directly, was that Undivided was the only song that gives a glimpse of their actual potential, fast, hard, and deep growls. Which I don't disagree with that statement at all. I feel like that had a song as far as the feel of what they could do, not necessarily what they do actually, but what they could do, and I liked the way he put that about that song in particular.
I can't find his comment, but it was something along the lines of them, because I remember reading this too, about they said something about comparing them to Avenged Sevenfold, and he mentioned that that's a slap in the face to Avenged Sevenfold, and it is. I mean, I'm not even that big of a fan of Avenged Sevenfold, and I totally agree with that statement. But I don't know, like that's just. I'll just kind of go over Let It Sleep. That was the opening track. Pretty good opening track. Let's see. Gone. Probably the best composition on the album as far as a song getting put together. A little bit different than a lot of this other stuff. And then Circled by Wolves. That was probably my favorite song, the very last song on the album.
I thought that, and in my opinion, the Circled... is it By Wolves or With Wolves? That one felt to me more like the in the same vein that Undivided was kind of releasing that full potential. I felt that more in that last track also. I had that same kind of feeling of this is what this band could be. Why are they not making an entire album of this?
Well, and another thing is we're talking about what this band could be, what they could sound like. I feel like we've been hearing the same kind of sound from these guys and Black Veil Brides and a lot of these other bands. Like, how long are these guys going to put out the same album, really? I mean, the same style. Mm-hmm. I can break it down for you. It's, you know, say you're going to be arena rock, and then you don't sound anything like it, and then you have a bunch of breakdowns, and then you try to get fancy with guitars on one song. Then you have, the one song that is just all clean singing that's soft because you got to try to get the chicks. and then you've got the good cop, bad cop vocals, and I'm just like, overall, that's about this album is I've heard this 100 times from so many different bands. There's just not a lot of variety in it for me. I think it's okay all the way around, but it just feels like I've heard this so many times before.
The Black.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. The Black in particular, that song, which I listened to it, and they do a little bit of MIDI manipulation with the vocals on that, which I do want to say that I decided it kind of sounds like a chicken, like barking, like the blah, 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 blah. That's kind of how that sounded to me. Which I was not a huge fan of that in particular. But also something else that I wanted to say about this was that as far as looking at tracks that kind of stand out. Whenever Dennis and I were talking, he made the statement. He's like, "Send Me Home is just bad," is what he said. Which I actually wrote that one down because I was trying so hard to find meaning. So I started looking up lyrics to these songs, and I was like, I want to find something redeeming in this. Which actually, the lyrics to the song are. It's quite sad. It's a song about regret and literally about feeling so lost that you can't find your way home, and somebody needs to almost take your hand and send you there because you're not going to go back on your own volition, which I like that. The song itself, to listen to it, I didn't think was good at all, but the lyrics were pretty cool for what that's worth. That's worth something, isn't it? Maybe. Do we have a sound effect for that?
But nothing for me. I mean,
yeah. Well, and the Black sounded like straight up Linkin Park. That's what I thought also with that as well. I don't know. I felt like it was like Linkin Park with deep screaming. I'm guessing that's part of what their arena rock situation was trying to go for with that particular track as well. I don't know. I wanted to dig it. I wanted to find something in it, and I didn't hate it. There was nothing about it. There was nothing about the album at all that I thought I hate this, but there was nothing about it that said I love this either. It was so non. And when we get to that, my rating will reflect that.
Give me an example of arena rock, exactly what.
I will jump out on a limb. I'll say something like Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Rat, that kind of stuff. I mean, stuff that just it's fun, it's corny, you can sing along to it, but yet it still rocks. It's still kind of catchy. And there's so many of these bands. Like we mentioned, Avenged Sevenfold. They kind of said the same thing like 10 years ago. Like, we're big Guns N' Roses fans. Well, you're not Guns N' Roses. Stop trying to be like them. The closest thing to that right now, probably in its truest form, even though a lot of people write them off as a comedy band, musically, Steel Panther. I mean, that's about the closest to the arena rock that you could possibly get right now.
Those guys are awesome, though. Their lyrics are funny. They have jokes, but their performance and their showmanship and their guitar work and everything is pretty.
Well, and the songs are super catchy. Whether you like them or not, they're really catchy, and that's what the '80s arena hair band rock stuff. And you can even let bands like like AC/DC in there. What is all these bands I just mentioned? What do they have in common? They all have catchy songs that everybody can sing with. They have not overly complicated songs, but yet cool riffs, and they're all like, you could almost write all of their songs as anthems almost. You know, and that's why those bands are where they are. I mean, come on, Guns N' Roses hasn't been together forever. Now they're getting back together. They're getting more publicity. They haven't done anything than this band album that we're reviewing right now. And I mean, that's what it's all about. When Guns N' Roses started, and when they didn't start, when they were 3 albums in, they weren't putting out the same album every time, and that's kind of what this is. And there's so many bands. That's why we're kind of stuck in a little bit of a music purgatory right now, because there's a lot of good bands that are out, but people don't know them, which is why we're doing the show, hopefully to help with that. But a lot of these bands just put out the same stuff over and over and over again. And since we're coming to the close, Jessamine, you mentioned how you didn't understand, I guess, how people could like it. like as far as like how they could get into it. And you mentioned Hot Topic and everything. I think the thing with this band is, if you want to compare them to it this way in arena rock, they have this look, this like a Hot Topic emo, weird goth kind of look that mostly appeals to girls. I see a lot of girls that not that I'm friends with, but you know how like on Facebook and Twitter, people you follow, you end up seeing people they follow and whatnot. So I end up seeing like a lot of girls, teenage girls, young early 20s. They like a lot of this stuff, and I think a lot of it is just kind of the sound, like just the background sound, like, oh yeah, I like this song, or maybe they do look into the lyrics and they get it a different way, but they're not as big of a fan of the music. A combination of the lyrics, a combination of the way they look, which is the same thing with, you could say, for like bands like Poison back in the day. You know, like they liked them for the look, they liked them for maybe the Every Rose Has Its Thorn, but they didn't really care for the music, and that's why a lot of like true metal fans or true rock fans weren't big Poison fans. I think that's kind of where this band is, but I understand why people will like it, but I'm kind of with you. Like at the same time, I don't dislike it, but it's just kind of caught in the middle.
I do think it's beautifully produced though, and Robbie, you can like also on that level, as far as like the actual level of production on these tracks, it is clean, and it is supplemented with MIDI controlled synthesizers. It's modulated. There are all of these elements to it that it is a clean recording, almost to the point of too clean. Yeah. Of course, I like them dirty also, but that was something that I thought it was beautifully produced. Did you notice that at all, Robbie?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's the production on it's excellent. It smells like money. You know what I mean? Like
for sure.
Production like that, and so I mean they obviously had a little bit of backing. Probably the recording studio and all that stuff, record label and stuff probably helps a lot. But I mean, like I said, it was all right. It does sound like a lot of other stuff we've heard before. And like Zan was saying, a lot of their fans are like 20-year-old girls, stuff like that. Maybe a lot of those people, the younger kids, are into this because they haven't been around as long as us, and they haven't already heard this stuff regurgitated from 20 to fans over the past 10 years that we've been listening to it. So that could be why they're into it, because maybe it sounds new to them, whereas to us, we're like, yeah, we heard this back in the 80s, back in my day. It was already done. But so... that could be some appeal to it as far as like the younger crowd liking it.
And to pile on,
if you are one of our, sorry.
Okay, to kind of go on what Robbie said, I should have said this earlier when I was mentioning that. Myself, I will kind of call myself out, I guess you could say. Back when I was, I'll say, a teenager, and like I thought White Zombie and Korn, like those were the first two like the heavier bands I had heard, because I was listening to just a bunch of rap. And so I liked a lot of that stuff. I liked a lot of new metal. And at that time I thought, oh, these bands are heavy. This is cool. And like there's these whole other worlds of death metal, black metal, industrial, even more rap and hip hop, 60s and 70s psychedelic. There's all this stuff that's actually heavier, weirder, and creepier than the stuff I was listening to, but I didn't know it because I just... the internet wasn't what it is now. So, I mean, really there's no excuse for people to kind of step outside the box and take recommendations, because the music is all there right in front. But I think that's kind of where, it's like they grasp onto the first thing that's like angst and heavy and stuff. But, I've met a lot of people that just, they're big Slipknot fans, but then you give them like Cannibal Corpse or Nile or, even Slayer sometimes, which is, who doesn't know Slayer, and they're like, oh yeah, this is good, but they're not as good as Slipknot. There's just a lot of people that just don't like to step outside that realm of comfort, right. I guess. So. Where's the crickets? We need the crickets.
Yeah, I'm on it.
All right, so do you guys have anything else before we jump into the rating?
I don't.
No.
All right. 1 star being the worst, 5 stars being the best. I'll kick things off here. I'm going to give it a 3 because it's average. It's pretty heavy. Production is pretty good. Nice use of a few electronic elements. But again, nothing new. We've heard this style over and over and over again. Breakdown, clean singing, growling, breakdown, clean singing, growling, clean singing, breakdown, breakdown, breakdown. It's just the same stuff. It doesn't sound bad. It's just okay, next, next. It's the Cottonmouth Kings thing. You can only talk about smoking weed so many songs, and then you're like, next. So,
Yeah.
3 stars because I don't think this album sucks. I just don't think it's that great. So it's average, 3 stars. Jessamine, what do you got?
I went directly in the middle since I think it was fine, but I didn't even give it 3 stars. I gave it a straight 2.5 out of 5, right in the middle. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. And honestly, I think most of that 2.5 stars was earned from just the fact that it was so polished. Just looking at it from a it is what it is standpoint, it had great production value, and I would give it 2.5 stars just on the fact that it was an expensive album to make. That's for sure.
Robbie, what do you got?
I'm same with Jessamine. I went right in the middle, gave it a 2.5. Like I said, one of my favorite albums I've ever heard before. I wouldn't say I'd probably go back and listen to it over and over again because there are other bands who have done this that I like better than this band that I would rather listen to. So, like I said, mainly because of production, it does sound so good. It is so crisp, clean for the entire thing. I enjoy a lot of the breakdowns, but again, I have other bands that I'd rather listen to that I feel do it a little better or did it before, so I'm partial to it. But 2.5 is what I'm going to go with, right in the middle. It was an average album.
Yeah, and I'll just say that I don't hate breakdowns. I think they sound cool, but they got to be done at the right spots. They can't be overused. Yep. And like you said, Robbie, there's a lot of bands that do it better than these guys. So, yeah, I'm like Bury Your Dead. I'll just throw that out there. I love those guys. A lot of people hate them. Hatebreed, actually, they've done breakdowns forever, but they do it right. They don't make whole songs breakdowns. They don't make whole albums breakdowns. They don't do clean singing. Growling, clean singing, growling, which, again, if done right, there are certain bands that can pull that off, but it just seems like that's all we get out of a lot of these, metal, if you want to call them metal, hardcore, metalcore, whatever. A lot of these bands, that seems like about what we get. They can't just pick something and stick with it. So, that's it for this show. Again, make sure to check out our new format. We got requests on Mondays, throwback records on Wednesdays, and new releases within 1 week on Fridays. Check us out on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Podomatic. Please rate, review, subscribe. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And until the next review, see ya.